feel like as women, like we tend to overcompensate sometimes in ways that we feel like inadequate. So we end up doing a lot more and a lot more in ways that like were never meant for us to take care of.
100%. Yeah. A lot of my clients are, doing amazing in the workplace and kick ass at their jobs. And
Yeah.
I think the masculine is more their comfort zone.
Yeah.
And then not finding healthy or happy long-term relationships because of everything that goes along with that, as well as past trauma, abuse, father's not there, things wired in them as well.
Have to be willing to be vulnerable. And that is so scary for the masculine woman. It's so scary to let your guard down and to let your walls down and to even feel like I might have to depend on someone. Like that is so scary. Like it's way easier to be in control and to unintentionally pick these men that need you because you always have the upper hand. And you can somehow like it's this weird paradox that's like, okay, if I make you need me, then you'll never leave me. So if you need me to do all of these things, then I feel and I think that you won't ever leave me. And now we're just like codependent on each other because I get my worth from them and then they can't ever figure it out on their own because you just enable it.
Food and weight obsession can be exhausting. Losing weight, gaining weight, dieting, feeling like a failure because you missed a workout, binged, overate, or gained all the weight back. The cycle is endless and it can be maddening. But I'm here to say you can stop the mental madness. You can take back control of your food behaviors, but you have to face your fears, you have to ask for help, and make a change. I am Leslie M. Thornton, permanent weight loss coach from hpwl.co. This is Hypnosis for Permanent Weight Loss, and I know you can make this happen. On this podcast, you will hear how to stop the mental madness, love your body, trust your food decisions so you can create a life of happiness, freedom, and inner peace. Hello, Leslie M. Thornton, Hypnosis for Permanent Weight Loss. Today we have another special guest, Vali, with us. Vali is a love coach. I'm actually going to read her bio because it's amazing and why not? So Vali, ding, 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 other than being amazing, she's a young entrepreneur who's been a dedicated love coach to help women from all ages find love again. And she knows in order to do this, they have to find love within themselves. She helps women break through the barriers of codependency, let go of painful experiences, and open up to a new way of living. Vali was raised by a single mom, and she realized at a very young, early age just how damaging not having this love could be. Her story is no fairy tale. She came from extreme poverty where none of the women had an education past high school, and some not even that. None of them had healed from their past traumas. None of them understood finances, and none of them had a healthy relationship with themselves or with others. Despite having these circumstances, Vali did not let that determine her future. She went on to graduate college with honors, began her healing journey from all of the generational trauma that the women in her family couldn't do, got educated in business, and by the age of 25 was already on her second business, which she believes is her calling. As a love coach, she's determined to spread her wisdom and be a light of hope for other women. She wants them to see that no matter how you started and no matter what cards you were dealt, you can heal, you can change, and you can love. So amazing. Vali, thank you for being here.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
You've always been just like a light, like ever since I met you in our coaching program, like just your energy has always been like an attracting magnetic force. And I know that, anyone that you get to be around feels that way whenever they meet you. So I think our audience is in for a treat today. And one of the reasons I've had different relationship coaches and people successful in relationships on the podcast before, and one of the reasons I wanted to bring Vali on is, and remind our audiences how, oftentimes ultimately it's our relationship with ourselves that ends up giving us the results that we're having, whether it be with overeating with food, like many of my audience is dealing with, or will show up in our relationships as well. And I know for myself, when I really got clear for myself around where my issues with food, body, and weight were coming from, at the end of the day, I saw that, my relationship world was really messed up, to be honest. And that it was so much more than about the food. I needed to really look at myself, heal past traumas and wounding and family things and all the things, in order to really get everything that I wanted to have. So it all relates together. And we're really excited to hear your story. So if you wouldn't mind, we'll just dive right into it of, what relationship world was like for you growing up and how you got past that.
Yeah, of course. And I feel like for so many of us women, relationships with ourselves and with others is usually our Achilles heel. It's where I hear women have the most pain and suffering is in their relationship with themselves and with others, specifically men. And when I was really little, my mom met my dad when she was 18 and she got pregnant. It was actually her first time having sex. Wow. And she got pregnant with me. And even that in itself is a huge miracle that I'm here, because very easily she could have just said, you know what, I'm not ready. But even though she decided to keep me, she wasn't ready. Like emotionally, she really wasn't ready. And her whole pregnancy, I think she said that she cried every single day. And so obviously, you think about it as an infant, like you're taking on all your mom's energy. And so I think I took that on at a really early age. And I believe that's why I'm an empath, is why I can feel other people's emotions and things around me probably more than the average. And then my dad, he wanted to marry my mom to like do the right thing, but he also was in no place to be a father or a husband. And so they decided that it was not going to work out. And I grew up with no dad. And so even I think that this can probably relate to a lot of your listeners, whether you grew up with a dad that was maybe there, but maybe emotionally absent. I know a lot of fathers, they take on a lot of burden of trying to be responsible for everything, and they really disconnect emotionally from their children. So even if you did have a father, but maybe you felt like he was emotionally absent, you in some way grew up fatherless. And I think that's what happens to a lot of women. If their father was around, they still didn't really feel that love, that protection, that, as a father, like as a daughter, you want your father to cherish you and you want him to love you and to protect you, and all of those things. If you don't have that at a very young age, create a chaos of dysfunction in your romantic relationships, because you either have no idea, like for me, I had no idea even to compare. I had nothing to compare it to. So I would settle for the bottom of the bottom because I'm like, at least it's something. Since I grew up with absolutely no love and protection from a man when I was in high school and started having, love interests, I settled for anything that I could get because that part of me was starving for a necessity that every child needs. Now, I don't want to say that like young boys don't need fathers, like they 100% need fathers. It's just different, the symptoms that happen when you don't have it. Boys they get more angry. They have a lot of problems with their self-identity. They never feel like they're good enough. And so the symptoms are different, but the wound is still there. And I think for women, it creates so much suffering in your romantic relationship. So when I finally was done like with abusive, toxic, just you name it, like I went through it all with men, and it was just, it got to the point where I was like, I can't do it anymore. Like, I can't keep living like this, and I don't want to keep living like this. So I think the first video I watched was like a Tony Robbins video on YouTube. And it was about your blueprint. And I was like, this is it. This is why I feel so messed up, because this is not what I envisioned my life being. Like, this does not match my blueprint. Mm. And I just started kind of baby steps, like picking up a little bit information, finding another book, listening to another podcast. And I mean, it's a slow process. I think that's another thing that a lot of people don't really realize. It's like, even though I was still young, I still had 18 years of programming. Mm-hmm. Like, even if I wasn't in my 40s and I was in my 20s, I still had all of those years stacked on of adopting these negative beliefs. And so it does take a while, but it's completely possible. You just have to want it bad enough. And I think I just got to the point where I was like, I cannot live like this anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that. And in that way, it's interesting because even watching my journey and kind of getting out of some of those beliefs and, emotionally not there and not knowing what that feels like, and relationships that weren't so good. It's like, you can have the knowledge, right? You can hear from people of being like, and you're like, yes, I kind of have always known that, like, this isn't it. Like, it's something that's amazing, but yet I don't know what it is. And you get the concepts, but there is, in my experience, something energetically different that happens when you're actually like, no, actually, I am done now.
Yeah. Yes.
It's a shift of being like, nope, actually now all the stuff that they're saying, like, it feels like I can incorporate it into my body. Was there a moment when that happened? Do you remember like the day when you actually made the decision?
Yeah, I honestly, I think it was when I watched that video, because it was after my high school boyfriend was extremely abusive, and that still wasn't enough. I still needed more. I still needed it's crazy, but it's like, sometimes we just really need to like eat more crap. Like, we're just not done eating it. Like,
my God. I know.
It's
I need to share this metaphor that I just heard yesterday. It made me laugh so hard, of it being like, so basically you've graduated from this school already. It's like, here's your diploma. You have now learned all these lessons about what it feels like to be abused and in a horrible relationship, and like, way to go. Like, you're done with this now. And then you go and you knock back on the dean's office door and you're like, actually, I want to do it again.
I want to.
And they're like, no, you already graduated. Like, you have your diploma. It's like, yeah, but I just want to like take those classes again. Like, it's just like, why? Like, right?
Yeah.
But it really helped me to hear that, like, even that metaphor, because it's like, it is that insane of being like that. I also want to share an awareness that I had for myself the other day, was like looking back at some of these relationships and, letting go of some of the resentment or the anger towards them even, which I think is such an important part of the healing process and getting, ready for real love to come in. And looking at it and seeing how, like, of course I allowed that relationship to happen, because at that time, for example, I was doing like an elegance training. Right. So it was like all about how to like harness your inner queen and like upgrade your life and your wardrobe and your things. So I ended up with like an overt narcissist who like was so over the top with, like elevation, that like had this like king kind of majestic aura. And like his way of treating me on the surface was queenly, until underneath that was the opposite, obviously, as we know, of narcissism. But still, to like take some of my power back of being like, and part of me chose that, right? Of just being like, Tick got the like body awareness of what it feels to be treated like royalty, even though there was a horrible dark
really good at doing that.
What'd you say? Oh yeah,
narcissists are really
100%.
The love bombing and making you feel, when they're with you, like, you literally feel like you're on the top of the world, like there's nothing else. And then behind closed door, it's like you are less than an ant.
Oh, less than.
Yeah.
100%. Like, think of you as being the worst human being with the most
Yeah.
evil intentions that has you question your entire life. It's just terrible. It's
Yeah.
terrible. If anyone's in a relationship like that, like, there's tons of support. Like, if you're being abused in any way, please get yourself help, because it's like not a joke. And like, the body has an actual way of like continuing to rope you back into it.
It's like a high. You get a high every time you go back.
100%. And there's familiarity, right, with your family, right? And if there were some of these patterns, sometimes it's like sneaky. Like, the more that I've done this work, I've also realized how much there is like narcissism, codependency in my entire extended family.
Wow.
Right. So then, like, to see like, so the next person that I ended up being with, I was like, okay, finally, like, got out of that. That was terrible. Covert narcissist. Didn't know what that was.
Yeah.
But, you know, for anyone who doesn't, maybe look it up. But basically, they're like in the victim mentality a lot. Yeah. Same charm, same, right, charisma, and like treats you amazing, and like still the love bombing, but then like goes into this like unworthiness like thing that's like manipulative,
want you to, like, feel bad for them.
Correct. Right. So empaths and caregivers tend to like suck all that in, right? Anyway, so, but then realizing for that one, for me, and, you know, for anyone listening, like looking at these things, like, it helped me to unhook, you know, being like, okay, well then what was, if I empoweredly chose this overt narcissist, even though there's, you know, implications where it's not my fault, they're everywhere. If you don't know about it, anyone could get looped into it, but to get my power back, looking at it that way. And then for this one of being like, okay, so this one was so hard for me to leave because it mirrored my family dynamic. Like, everyone in my family loved this person. Right. And they'd be like, Leslie, if you ever change your mind about that person, like, we would accept it. Right. Like, all of these. And that's like also something else they teach you about narcissists. Like, all of your friends and family might like really like this person, which makes it even worse. Because they don't see what they're like, again, because they won't do it, you know, in front of other people. But then for me to be like, wow, no wonder it was so hard for me to let that go, is because essentially by letting that person go, I'm letting my family go. Unconsciously.
Like letting them down.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And it doesn't feel like letting down to me. It's just more just like, he was the symbol of like, if you want to be with someone who is like the same dynamic of your family, who you've had the story of is like the best of the best, like amazing family, would never want to like that's right. It could be a big deal. And it was like, that's by saying no to this, I'm saying no to that. And then it's pivoting over into the complete unknown of being like, okay, well, so it's not my family, and it's not anything like my family, because all of them, I could see where they're in that. So then it's like, what is there? So then bring it back to you. Would love to hear, you know, so you made that choice, the blueprint, made the decision. And then how did you get your way out of that?
So I mean, I stumbled a lot, and I want to just like really highlight that, because I think as women, we're so hard on ourselves, and we feel like if we don't get it right away, like there's something wrong with us, like we're broken, we're damaged, like we're just never gonna make it. Like, you have to be okay with stumbling and giving yourself grace. Now, I don't want to say like enable yourself to behave in ways that are self-destructive or self-sabotaging, but know that when you have that much that you're trying to battle against, like, it's not always going to be a pretty journey. And I think that with the self-love and the self-compassion and the self-development that's like just being like blasted mainstream now, it looks like it's all butterflies and everyone's like meditating and I feel so good about myself. And it's like, it is not like that. That's just not realistic. There's times and moments, but honestly, those are like far and few in between when you have those like beautiful, it's like when you're first going, it's like you're like fighting for your happiness. And so as I was in that process, I think one of the big things that I had to let go of is I could not trust or count on the adults in my life as a child. And so I had a very like fierce mentality of like, okay, like I'm going to do this on my own and I'm going to do it this way. And then I put on a very like tough exterior, not even knowing what I was doing. but just kind of out of survival. Like I was like, I need to change this, and I have to figure it out. And so
Strong bow my way through
yes,
this. Mm-hmm.
yes.
Yes. Yes.
So as I started getting into new relationships and trying to do things a different way, I actually became subconsciously very masculine in my energy. And so then I started attracting very feminine men, because polarity, you have to have opposites to attract. And so I was left leading my controlling tendencies, my like, I need to fix, I need to manage, I need to get it done, were heightened because now I'm with a more feminine partner.
Right.
And so I still like, I wasn't in these like abusive relationships anymore, but I wasn't happy. And I wasn't fulfilled, and I wasn't content, and I was still unhappy. It just wasn't as bad because I wasn't like going through all that like other chaos. But I still knew that, okay, this still isn't right. Like this still can't be it. Like I know that I'm not perfect, but this is not
right. Something's still missing here.
Yeah. And I don't know if your audience feels that way, or if they struggle with that in any way, where I feel like as women, like we tend to overcompensate sometimes in ways that we feel like inadequate. So we end up doing a lot more, and a lot more in ways that like were never meant for us to take care of.
100%. Yeah. A lot of my clients are, doing amazing in the workplace and kick ass at their jobs. And I think the masculine is more their comfort zone. And then not finding healthy or happy long-term relationships because of everything that goes along with that, as well as past trauma, abuse, father's not there, things wired in them as well.
Have to be willing to be vulnerable, and that is so scary for the masculine woman. It's so scary to let your guard down, and to let your walls down, and to even feel like I might have to depend on someone. Like that is so scary. Like it's way easier to be in control and to unintentionally pick these men that need you, because you always have the upper hand. And you can somehow like it's this weird paradox that's like, okay, if I make you need me, then you'll never leave me. So if you need me to do all of these things, then I feel and I think that you won't ever leave me. And now we're just like codependent on each other, because I get my worth from them, and then they can't ever figure it out on their own, because you just enable it.
Yep. I think that's going to be a game changer for people to hear. And then I think even like with codependency, that can be the opposite end of the spectrum, where it's like, I can't take care of myself.
Yes.
And I've seen it the other way around, where the man will be doing all the things, all the things, because they get their worth from being needed. The opposite, it can happen the opposite way. And it's still codependent, and still at the end of the day, ain't healthy at all.
Yeah. Like I worked with a woman, and there's levels of codependency, and then there's different symptoms, and there's different like personal circumstances. And obviously if you're married or dating an addict, it's really, everything's just more extreme when you're dating an addict. And so he was a functioning addict, but he was he was still very like responsible, in the sense that he had all the household bills paid for, everything paid for. So she was codependent to him because she had no idea about finances. She didn't know how to take care of herself. She like money, which is what makes the world go round right now. Like it just is what it is. So she felt like she could never really leave him, because she had no idea how to live on her own. But then she also felt like he needed her, because if she wasn't around, then who knows what would happen to him, since he's an addict. Like how far would he get? How bad would he get? Would he end up in jail? Would he end up dead? And so it's a really nasty like pullback with both of them.
Yeah. And just for people listening, like, do you have offhand like a shorthand list of the codependency, like what they could be? I know there's like caretaker and like do you know them at all? I'm just curious.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a whole book that has them like, I mean, there's so many,
right?
so many, but I mean, like definitely like caretaking, caregivers, like lack of boundaries. You basically if there's someone else in the picture, like you disregard your own routine, your own schedule, your own life to cater to them. You feel unimportant and not needed if someone isn't asking you for help. And you also give a lot of unsolicited help and advice. Always like, what can I do? What can I do? Where do you need me? What do I need to do?
Like looking for the person. And that can also, in my experience, be a reason why you also feel unsafe to be vulnerable too. If you have a partner who's like a fixer.
Yes.
Because then you like, as soon as you say something and they're like pouring all of their like, oh, great, this is my cue. And it's just like, thank you. I didn't ask for that. What I actually need is, which goes into like boundaries, which I'm sure can like link up together as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, so many different. If anybody, you know, hasn't looked up more about codependency, even the Codependency No More book, like highly recommend that, just to like
I had no idea
aware of
how
what you might be doing. You had no idea what?
That I was codependent.
Yeah.
I didn't know what that was. I thought codependent was like, because I was like trying to play the strong one, but really like I needed you to need me in some way, or else I didn't feel like I was important. And I think a lot of like the masculine women struggles with that, and it's a shadow side, because you think that you're just being so generous and you're giving and you just want to help. That I hear it all the time. It's like, I just want to help them. I know how much like they struggle with this, and I just want to help them. And there's a shadow side when you give. You know, there's one that you want, that you love someone and you want to give, but then there's the shadow side that a lot of people don't talk about, and you're giving for your own selfish reasons.
Correct.
Because you want.
And in the background, they might be having some talk of being like, they are not thankful for what I'm doing.
Oh my gosh, the triangle.
Oh my God, exactly. When I see that, and you'll see it in people, you know, pretty quickly. And just like, you know, whenever I see anybody that like they do something, then there's someone's just like, well, that's what they're going to do to me. You know, like that's the way someone treats one person is how they treat everyone. So it's just like, I don't want to be on the receiving end of something for someone who then is resenting me at the end of the day because I didn't thank them enough or praise them enough, or it's just like, that's not authentic giving. And I think a lot of people, women in relationships, you know, might be giving and then being upset in the background because like, oh, and they can't even blah, blah, blah for me. And it's just like a nasty, yucky thing.
It is.
So yeah. And if, you know, anyone has those patterns, it's like, there's a way to heal out and past that. So what kind of tools did you use, Vale, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah. I mean, it was a lot of like, I don't want to, like people to be nervous or scared, but it was like, I had to go through a lot of like almost ego deaths. Like I had to really like shed parts of me and like die to myself that I was holding on to for dear life. Like, no, like this has to be this way. And this is just who I am. And this is how I love. And we don't realize how attached we are to our story until we are really being tested to let go of it.
100%.
So I started therapy. I dove really deep into self-development, definitely more on the extreme side, but that's just because I really enjoy it. Not everyone is gonna love personal development as much as I do, and I can accept that now. Before I thought it was like so weird when people didn't love it as much as I did, but That now I see that.
Like, did you do things where people were like yelling at you to get past ego things?
I would just wanted to sign up for everything. Like I wanted to go to like every Tony Robbins seminar, and I was only 23 at the time. And so like my friends were like, dude, I don't want to go to that. Like, I want to go to Coachella. Like, I'm not spending my money on Tony Robbins. And I was like, why would you want to do that?
Your codependent part came out. Why not? You should. You need it.
Yes.
You need me.
Gosh. There's that Instagram. She's so good, and she has such funny videos. Holistic psychology or something like that. I'm gonna have to share it with you. She's fabulous, but she has a video that's like when you finally go into personal development, it's like, okay, I'm reading this book, so you need to read this book, you need to read this book, you need to read this book. And it's just like when you get so caught up in it, sometimes you feel like everyone else needs to be on the same pace as you.
Oh,
and I've struggled even with that with my husband. Like now, sometimes like I want him to like get it more, and then I have to just tone it back and realize like, okay, that's like the old me trying to, that like it honestly, it's fear.
Yep.
It's fear that comes up.
Yep. I just saw something in the Sun recently, how, you might have this amount of personal development happening in yourself, but then you pause yourself and you're like, wait, make sure everybody else has it, so that, and unconsciously it's like dad isn't left behind or mom isn't, right? Like, I need to bring dad up with me or else abandonment's going to happen.
Yep.
And it's like,
you're not with me, then that means I'm alone.
Right. Yeah. So it's like a
like,
never ending journey.
Yeah. Come up with me.
It was interesting over the summer. I have a group of girlfriends who we've been in a Marco Polo chat for years and years. So there's obviously been many cycles of who we've become along the way, because everyone's very growth oriented. And I took a big step back this summer from just like, I just went way more internal. I wanted to face my fears of being alone. And I feel like every break that I had during work while I'm working at home, it would be on the Marco Polo app doing video texting and kind of like using like a water cooler kind of. So I just kind of stopped doing that. I felt brave enough to be able to feel more of my feelings and discomfort. But I would still watch the videos of my friends as they were sharing about their days, when I had some time. And I was like, and I watched myself have that impulse of being like, this is what you need to do, or watch out for that, or what are you doing? Right. Like going into that same kind of world with them. And I was just like, I'm not going to do that right now. I'm just, and then I would be so surprised that like the next day they found that answer on their own. Like they watched something on personal development, and the thing that I was like, they're going to die without me if I don't say this. Right. Like they got that on their own. And it was just like, wow, like the universe has their back.
Yeah.
Right. It's like the universe has everyone's back.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just like everybody, you just need to like hands off the wheel, like unless they're paying you for coaching them, like that is not the role of being in a relationship or being in a friendship or whatever. It's pretty awesome to see, and like has changed the dynamic of our friendship, honestly, in a good way.
So much healthier when you can when you can separate that. And I've had to go through that with friends too, where I'm like, they're like talking to me about their love life. I'm like, okay, but they're talking to me about their love life because I'm their friend,
right?
Not because they're paying me for advice.
Correct. Yep. Big change in that for sure. Yeah. And for me, as far as it's been like tons of facing my fears of being alone, feeling my pain a lot, like recognizing parts of myself. Like I just became aware of one that was just like, I'll get in the driver's seat, and then I rationalize my actions by being like, well, astrology says this is exactly where I'm supposed to be.
Wow.
And, this is like this, and this is like that. And I think that if we do X, Y, and Z, we can make that relationship work again. Right. Like it'll be like this whole, and I think it's my authentic self, but then I just finally unblended that. And I'm like, damn, like she's been doing it for a long time like that, So I actually like deleted my astrology app. Like for the first time, I was just like, nope, like we are surrendering to the goal, right? Of experiencing real love, and just being. So then when I was talking to you about like this relationship was there because of this relationship was there to let go of my family. like now the relationship just with me, it's like I'm literally visualizing that I'm turning towards like a mirror of myself, of being like, this is the relationship, like that's the one I'm choosing now, you know? And it feels nice because when I go out and stuff, it's just like, no, like I'm closed, like, no, we're in a relationship, like we good, you know, like already taken. And I do, you know, every single successful person who's in a marriage that I've studied has spent time alone with themselves prior to meeting somebody. Was that your experience as well?
Yeah. I was, after my last boyfriend, I was single for about a year. Yeah, about a year. And I definitely could have stayed longer, but it was just interesting the way it played out. Is I met Mason to February. I met him a month before COVID. And so COVID really accelerated our relationship. And honestly, it was a God-given miracle that it did, because he was like so solid and was a huge rock and a place of stability for me in a world that was so unstable. So I don't know what would have happened if COVID wasn't there, if we would have like moved as fast as we did. But I mean, given that it was like that, thank God that he was there and wanted to step in such like a fierce, like just like a real man would step in and like, no, because we both lost our jobs, because I wasn't coaching then. I started getting my certification that year, and then I started Xander's program in September.
Got it.
So in March, we were both like jobless, and we had only been dating for a month. So just to give you like the context, and he told me like, hey, I know we both lost our jobs. I know like things are a little scary right now. I have enough saved, and he's like 26. I have enough saved to pay for both of our rents for the next 6 months. Like, I want you to know that like you're okay if you need help. And that's awesome. But I have had boyfriends for like years who have never ever offered that kind of like protection and support. And this is a man who's only been dating me for a month, and he's like
just on it. That's just his normal way of being, is to think like that.
Yeah. And so and so seeing things like that in a man, like even when like you'll know, like your heart will just start to become more tender around a strong man.
Yeah, there was one person that I dated that was just an awesome experience of that, as far as thinking way beyond self, like thinking about the entire ecosystem. Like protecting his boundaries, protecting mine. Right. But then like communicating all the things. If there was a disagreement, he would bring it up, and the way that he would ask the question would be like, so how did what I say make you feel the other day? Like and it was just like, like I felt like I did not have to do that heavy lifting that I had prior always had to be doing, because I was so into personal development, of being like, I think we need to address this. Like, I think we need to figure this aspect out. Like that aspect was gone. And it was just the most solid held, like whatever, like there was a house around me that was like protecting me. Right. And like all the way to the end, that only lasted, you know, handful of months or whatever. But just, I'm so grateful that I had that, you know, experience in my body to be like, that exists. Like that feels really safe, you know, without it feeling codependent, without it feeling like he was trying to get something out of it by saying those things, or there was nothing like that. It was just, let's be honest, you know, every step of the way. And he was going to do that stuff. So yes, does exist. Feels amazing.
It goes such a long way, and it allows you to relax. And then it inspires you to be a better woman for them.
Yes, better communicator.
Take care of them even more, not in a codependent way, but like you want to like love them and respect them, and like find ways of making them feel special and seen, and all of the beautiful things that love inspires us to do.
Yeah, it's a whole different visceral feeling than anything I had been in before. Okay, and then so I love that, and we'll get into that, but I'm also curious, that year that you took off for yourself,
yes,
how was that experience for you?
There was times where it was really uncomfortable because I had never really been single. Like, even in the times that I was single, I was still always like talking to guys. I was always like I always was trying to get this like deep wound filled by, even if it was just attention. And then
that was always the same for me. Like, I always just needed to know there was somebody out there who I was their special one. Even if I wasn't choosing them, I just needed to know that they loved me more than anyone else.
And that they wanted to see me. And, as a young woman and not knowing the value like of my beauty, I thought that that was the only way to get men's attention. And so for a long time, like, I was like hypersexualizing myself just because I thought, well, at least they want me. Even if it's just for my body, at least they want some of me. Now, I've learned and I've grown a lot, and I can see how many women fall into that trap. And it's so sad. Like, you go on Instagram and TikTok and it's like soft porn. Like there's a lot of women, and a lot of beautiful women, that just are completely like selling their bodies. And I know, and I can, empathize with them because I was there and I had no one, that's even like the father that would come out and be like, honey, no, like, you don't need to do that. Like, you are loved, you are beautiful. You don't need to expose yourself like that to get attention. And so I think that, I think that when I was younger, like, always having like those guys' attention, even if it was just for like sexual reasons, I at least felt wanted. So going through that year where I was just like, okay, no, like, we're not gonna date. I'm not gonna like need to be texting someone. And it was really uncomfortable. There was a lot of times where it was really uncomfortable. And I tried to kind of numb myself, I think, a little bit with like, I used to smoke a lot of weed. And it was just like a way to kind of like cope with the loneliness. Like, okay, how am I gonna like go through it? And I think women cope with it in different ways. Like, probably some of your clients eat. They overeat, maybe they drink, which I think like drinking is so normalized, but people don't understand like how bad it can be when it's, when you use it the wrong way. And you're numbing. Correct. Like, I don't think weed is bad. I don't think alcohol is bad, but I think when you overuse it and when you're using to numb, it's bad.
Yes, 100%.
You're avoiding.
Correct. And I think that's always like the answer lies within every individual, to be like, I feel like there's always that little part of us that knows, like that little voice that's like, I'm using this in a way that ain't just having a drink at night. Like, deep down, and that's different for everybody, honestly. But it's like, how do we listen to that little voice, and how can we actually like wave the flag and be like, maybe I need to look at this? And for me, it's been like realizing like, I just need to cry, like, and it's like the fear or terror of actually like sitting there and being with those uncomfortable, just but it's like, now it's something I'm like, I can't wait. Like, it's just like, oh yeah, we got a nice wail in there for later. I'm crying myself to sleep tonight. Like, I'm not afraid of it anymore. And I've learned like, it feels so good. There's transformation on the other side. And then I get like connected to a deeper wisdom, or like another axis of, just like something else that comes in that's just like, no, we good. Like, you're good, but it, like, if we don't actually give voice or emote, some of these real feelings that we have, then it's gonna come out somehow, so alcohol and food will be the way. Lots of what I've been coaching my clients on. I've been calling them intentional tantrums or like intentional cries. I like teach them. I'm like, all right, have you had a tantrum yet? And they're like, no. I'm like, I know you don't want to do it, but I'm telling you, it'll change your life.
Yeah.
And
So
some of them
important.
have done it and they're like, I feel better. I gotta say, I feel a lot better, So, and I tell them it only takes like a couple times of realizing like, A, this stops. B, I do get clarity after I do this. And I come back to my true self. Right. And then it's like, then it just builds up that relationship with yourself of being like, I got me. Whereas before it's like, maybe like you need to keep having like more coaches, more mentors, more self-help books, more to like tell you, but like, it's not actually changing your life because you're not doing it for you. And it's like the access is on the other side of the big emotional tantrum.
Yeah. The emotional release. Yeah. No, when I finally stopped smoking weed, it was actually when I decided to go full time with love coaching. And what I realized is like when I was numbing, I wasn't just numbing myself from like the loneliness that I was feeling, but I was also trying to numb the lack of purpose that I felt.
Interesting.
The lack of impact that I was having and the lack of service of the world. Like we want to all feel like we're impacting, even if you're baking cupcakes. Like if I come home and I get to have the most delicious cupcake and I get to give it to my kids and get to give it to my husband, like you're making our life better. Like that's an impact. Like it's not like you have to be a coach to have impact. But I realized like after I was able to let that go, it was like, I just didn't have enough purpose in my life. And so I needed something much greater to fill that in, which I think a lot of people don't realize when they try to do like sober October or like sober January, and they make these goals. But in February, you go right back to it because you didn't replace it with anything big enough.
I love that. Thanks for sharing that. Yep. I have a theory that like the more addicted somebody is, the smarter they are and the more impact they would be able to have on the planet. Like we just need to channel all of that amazing addictive energy towards service and like doing something that's going to help people. And it's like, there's nothing that charges, me up more than that. It sounds like you as well. It's like,
that's so cool. I never even
know the potential. Yeah. Like every time I'm like, well, there's the smartest person at the party. Like they're like a handle deep in some things. Like if you want to know how to like, save the earth, talk to that guy. I guarantee you he has the answers and it's brilliant.
Wow.
And it's tragic because their parenting sucked, right? Like they didn't have, whatever, just the way that they're. And you'll see it like the people who end up they always have a story of like, I was a drug addict, I was a huge alcoholic, and like there is that certain, gotta surrender and gotta find a mentor or something, and they have to probably have that internal drive to get better. But I think there can be, parts of the spectrum on that, so it's like you might not be as far as that person, but if you're smoking weed every night or you're drinking way too much alcohol during the week and that it's numbing something out, it's like, yeah, I love that. Like, do you have your own lane? Because even being successful in a relationship or a marriage, like with the type of man we're talking about, in my opinion, is like, you got to have your own life. You got to have your own lane.
Yeah. Something. Even cupcakes. Like if that's what really like lights you up. Like I think women, we compare ourselves so much to other women, and it's like, well, like I need to be doing that. And now given our society, how much we're pushing like women into the masculine seat, like a lot of those women characteristics aren't as valued that much, and they're so valued and they're so important.
Yes,
they're
agreed.
So important, and we need them.
We need them.
Literally need them. Like
especially now, we really need them.
Yes. So I feel like for all the women listening, like it doesn't matter what your lane is. You just have to be able to embrace it and go all in.
Yeah, make it your lane.
Yes.
I was going for a jog the other day and it was just, listening to some awesome dubstep song that a mentor of mine recommended. I was just like, but it was just like that awareness. And I do this all the time. And I don't know if it's like codependent, but like so many times during my entrepreneurial path, it's been like, I'll make a choice. I'll be like, oh, I'm going to run this kick-ass retreat. It's going to be in Thailand at this beautiful. And all of a sudden I'm like, who should co-lead it with me? Like, let me bring in other leaders to lead. Like I bring in and I water it down. It's just like, no, it's you. Like, this is your thing, you know?
Yeah.
And so just like bringing it back to myself, like this year has been 100% about myself and about me. Like my vision board is like 1% about like healthy relationship, like 99% about like, it's me, focus on me. It's about up leveling you. And just the run again, just brought me back and being like, that's your lane. Like, and I feel like the theme of this month I've heard from all these, you know, different spiritual people talking about, and they have whatever, is like letting go of codependency and just being like, this is your life. Like one of my other mentors, she did a video and she was like, she's like 26 and she's like a really amazing investor. It's like really, I interviewed her on this podcast. Her name was Juliet Tangen. So just like full blown self-expression all the way out there, like lives this high life, you know, but so grounded and so real and so raw. And she's like, listen, she like did a live video. She's like, I love my friends. You know, I would do anything for my friends. She was like, and I got my, like, it's just me. She's like, I'm born alone. I'm dying alone.
Yeah.
I know what I need to be happy in my life, and nothing's going to stop me from going after it. It may not be what my friends need or want in their lives. I support them whatever they want, but she's like, but I know what I need to be happy, and I'm going after it no matter what that takes, and who has to be left behind or brought, like whatever. And it's just like, it's so easy, especially when relationships come in, to just like lose self,
completely
forget that it's not just about you. Like try to bring your friends up with you. Like it's just
when
like,
they don't even want to go to they don't even
want to go. Yeah. Like you're manipulating them too. You know, it's just like everybody, right? And just what if you just focus on your own lane? And if you don't have a lane, then it's like, all right, well then find a lane or just start doing service, because anything service makes people happy.
Yes.
I remember having a conversation with my family at one point, and my dad's like, well, you know, like, well, what makes human beings happy? And I immediately was just like, service, period. And he was just like, I can't disagree with that one iota, you know, because it's just like, lose yourself in service. And now, you know,
your problems become much smaller.
So much smaller.
Yeah. When we are just constantly thinking about our problems and, you know, our pity party, woe is me. And, you know, we just want to complain about something. And when you're of service and giving service to others, and you realize like, oh, that wasn't that big of a problem. Not like discrediting the things that we go through.
No, correct.
And of course we all have like really, you know, major turning stones in our life. But I think for the everyday life that we live, it's really not as bad as we
100%
as we make it to be. And I think when we get back in service and get back on like growing as a person, then we can see like, do you know Nick Santos?
I've heard of Nick Santos.
Yeah, like he's a motivational speaker. He does not have legs. He only has one arm, and on the one arm he only has one finger.
Interesting.
So I mean, like now those are some tough cards that were dealt to that man.
Yeah.
And he has all of these amazing videos, and he always says like, you know, I don't have a disability. He's like, you know, the people who actually have a disability are the ones with a bad mindset. He's like, because I can still do anything that I want. And I'm just like, whoa. Like, imagine this, you know, living that life, but having that mindset. It's so different. And he's like, I don't have to go to the gym. He's like, I get to go to the gym because I know that there's other people that are, you know, stuck in hospital beds that like can't move at all. I can move and I can get to the gym, and I want to be there because I get to, and I get to go to work. I don't have to go to work. I get to see my girlfriend. I don't have to see her. It's like those
amazing,
just changing those perspectives of what we do all the time, you know, especially when it comes to relationships and self-development, like with therapy. It's like, oh, I have to do this, or I have to book another appointment. It's like, no, you get to.
Yes. 100%
Get to choose that, which is a huge blessing that a lot of people don't get.
100%. And little asterisk for listeners listening is like, we're not talking about the service we were talking about before, where it's codependence and you feel like if you're not constantly doing things for other people, then you're useless and worthless. That's different. This is purposeful action that just makes you feel good, and you're just doing it because it makes you feel good. You don't care about, any payback that you're getting or whatever, as much as just it feels like you're contributing in a way that means something to you. Not that you shouldn't be paid for what you do, because I also think that people should, if it makes sense for them and they want that, or if it resonates with them. So love it. Okay. So then, so now you're married. After your year of all the things.
After the year of all the things, I met Mason during COVID. We started dating. Like I said, it was accelerated, just given the condition of the world. And then we actually started going to church together. Like, I wasn't going to church before. And we just really wanted to do things a different way. Like, we saw how our parents lived. We saw, the divorce. My mom was not even married to my dad. And we wanted to find a strong foundation that we could build our marriage on, so that when it does go through hard times, we at least have a strong foundation. And without God, this isn't even like trying to be religious, but like, without God, like, I literally don't know where I would be. Like, he has been a light force in my life. And I think it's helped Mason and I hold ourselves accountable, because when you're just living for yourself, it's hard to tell, like, kind of how you were saying, like, you were like, I thought this was my authentic self. And then you realize, whoa, she's just been in the driver's seat for so long that she got me. Like,
she got me.
She tricked me. I thought that was
she totally tricked me for a long time.
I think like, if even if it's not like God, but a higher power that you believe in, at least it's something above you that like keeps you in check. Because if we're always doing just anything that we want, I don't think
it's gonna make it very hard for the marriage,
especially in a marriage. Like, if Mason did whatever he wanted, or I did whatever I wanted, like, we wouldn't, there would be no marriage.
It's just so easy through hard times to then start rationalizing your way out of it, just the way human beings are, or just all the things, versus if you have a relationship with God or the higher power or something, it's like you are always going back to you at the end of the day. Right. And like affirming on top of that covenant that means something to you versus doesn't, or maybe means something that wasn't established in communication between you and your partner. Because some people don't take it that seriously, or some people, they always have it written in there that divorce is an option, or there's like, a certain level of
things get bad.
Correct. There's a certain level of detachment that I think is healthy, of like, listen, I'm gonna like do this until, or unless, it really is like the way for us to continue loving each other is to separate. Like, there are, in my opinion, like, I think that can be a healthy circumstance to have, where it's like, I had a coach one time who, she was married for many, many years, like had a great partnership and marriage and all the things. And then he just had this like knowing within himself that like it was time for him, like genuinely, and like was so saddened by it, but just like, it was just such this man's truth. And at first she was like super felt betrayed and how, all the things. But then she came back to him and she was just like, I said that I would love you, through anything and everything. And if you are telling me that you are 100% sure, like, I will love you through this too.
Wow.
and
Wow.
they separated so amicably. And, you know, he went and did what he knew his path was asking him to do and ended up,
Yeah.
you know, remarried and like very much what he needed. And then she also did as well, like
Oh,
more.
good. Because it's so unfortunate that a lot of women after those long marriages, the men always remarry. Guarantee you, the men always find another partner. Because men are very independent, but without a woman, like I feel like a man just completely has no reason of wanting to do things.
Yeah, I agree.
Like the
That's also
desire
like
to make
biological
art.
too.
Yes. Like,
Mm-hmm.
why would I go out and hunt? Why would I go and make a home if there's no one to share it with? Like, that's like
Correct.
the fire within men is like, I at least am doing this also for you.
Yep. Men need to do better to do better. And feel
Yes.
better, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And a lot of
Yeah.
women now, it's like they don't let them do that. And then they realize, then they wonder why they are disappointed. It's like, well, you're not letting him do biologically what he wants to do, which is to take care of you.
Correct.
If you have everything figured out, there's no room for him.
Exactly.
Like a lot of women are like, oh, he's intimidated by me. It's like, it's not really intimidated. There's just no room for him.
No space for him to interject any of his.
Yeah, you got it all figured out, girl.
Right. Yes, exactly. And it
they
is, you
know
have
that.
to, it's a learned dance, which is why you can hire Vale to be your love coach if needed, because until you know how to do it, like I've had several relationship coaches at this point, maybe 3 or something over the last maybe 6 years. And I think each one has taught me to the point where now just certain ways of being are now incorporated into how I, you know, speaking with my feelings and making requests in a beautiful way. And, you know, in a place that's like loving for all and whatever, versus before, you know, if you're like a business minded person, it's like, this isn't working and this is where we need to fix it. And here's how the impact is. And here's what we need to do. Like that used to be like the approach. And it was like, why am I not happy in these relationships? Like, oh, well, because you're trying to business manage them, you know, like that's not the answer. It's an art form, like mastering relationships when you want to have a relationship that Vali and I are talking about, which it's not for everybody. But if you can resonate with like I'm, you know, in the masculine and attracting feminine, or I'm attracting, you know, abusive partners or narcissist partners. And I don't know why, it's like there are those upgrades to do in your nervous system and your thoughts that will, that are a learned thing over time.
Yes.
Very much so.
Deeply rooted.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even like going back to like in your mother's womb, like that's where they start. And that's so far. Like it's
so far.
Yeah, it's wild. And I don't think a lot of people are prepared to see it, and that's why they avoid. You know, I've talked to even friends that are like, I don't want to go to therapy because I just like I don't know what's gonna come out. Like I don't know what I'm gonna find out. And I would just encourage you, instead of because it's you think that you're avoiding pain because you think that if you don't go to therapy, then I don't have to face it. But you're not avoiding pain. You're just prolonging change. You're going through pain right now. You just have learned how to manage it. Maybe you've learned how to numb it, suppress it, but it's there. It's already there. Like there's no avoiding that. You're just avoiding transformation. You're avoiding breakthrough change.
Yeah. That science is now proven is actually possible, which, you know, a generation ago, nobody even knew that. They just continued all the patterns, and it's like, it doesn't have to be that way. And it's like, it's slowly killing you.
Yes.
You know, like the numbing and the stress and the trying to make things work that ain't gonna work. Like it is. And it's like, you're just setting yourself up for a life of like an uphill slog. versus all the things you're scrolling through, looking out on Instagram and Facebook as these like amazing lives, like comparing yourself to that and then just adding to the list of why you're mad at yourself. Like, just use the mad at yourself to hire a damn coach and start doing the work.
Exactly.
So thank you so much for being here.
Of course. Thank you.
I love this conversation.
Yeah.
I think everyone probably gets what I mean about the magnetic field around Vale. So it's just like, it's the best. So thank you. Thank you. How can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram. My username is Love Coach Vale, or Facebook, but I'm mainly on Instagram.
Awesome. Thank you. And we'll put that in the show notes as well. Thank you everyone for listening. And let's make the upgrades happen. Today's the day. This year's your year. Thanks, everyone. If you are serious about taking action on your struggle with food, body, and weight, then this is for you. Go ahead and text the word hypnosis to 855-BE-ALIVE. That's 855-232-5483. Immediately after texting that number, you will get access to our free training that will tell you why you can't figure the food, body, and weight thing out, why you can't keep weight off even after you've been successful in the past, and how to actually overcome it, including a mini hypnosis session at the end. Don't miss out. Text the word hypnosis to 855-BE-ALIVE. That's 855-232-5483.